Good day. During the 2024 presidential campaign that led to the election of President Donald Trump, President Trump was very relentless in his attack of the Democrats for starting the Ukraine war. He particularly said that the war would never have happened if he was president. And he always said then that he would end this war on the first day of his being elected as a new president of America. After being elected, President Trump has initiated peace moves, and he got two sets of envoys to mediate this peace between Russia and Ukraine. One, Steve Witkoff, seems to have a good relationship with Putin and the Russians. The other, Kit Kellogg, is very well entrenched in Ukraine to the extent that Trump made him the special envoy to Ukraine. In the course of trying to make peace and end this war, it has now been clear that this war, the Ukraine-Russia war, is not as simple as it's supposed to have been. And Trump is trying to deny ownership of the war. These days, he says the war is Biden's war. He says the Ukraine-Russia war is Biden's war. This war will never have happened if I was president. It's a stupid war. So many people are dying, and I want to end this war. A lot of people look to the fact that Donald Trump may be eyeing possibly the Nobel Peace Prize, and that will be a big one if he's able to end the war. But unfortunately, the war has not panned out the way he has planned it. The Ukrainians are not ready to end the war. The Russians are not ready to end the war. The Europeans are not ready to end the war. And the group of people in America called the Neocons, who have an interest in wars all across the world, whether it be it against Yemen, be it against Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Panama, they too don't want to end the very lucrative Ukraine-Russia war. So after a few months of being in the presidency and trying to end this war, Donald Trump is now at a point where he is cornered. He does not know what to do. He is now coming to the realization that the Ukraine-Russia war is not as simple as it sounds. He can't end this war. Welcome. Welcome to my channel, Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. I continue to put out these videos, and thankfully the subscriber numbers are growing. So, but even if they are growing, I urge you to subscribe, make comments, share this video, make comments, like, and help us to develop the channel as it grows. President Donald Trump has come to full face with the reality of the amount of hatred that has spawned this war. The Ukrainians have had a long history of not liking Russians, and the Europeans have had a long history of fearing Russians. The Russians themselves have had a recent history of being afraid that they will be invaded again, as they were invaded by Napoleon in the 19th century and Hitler in the 20th century. So now they are scared that they may be invaded again, this time by NATO. Already this war that is going on there now, the Russians believe it's a NATO war against them. It's a war that has all the hands of NATO, all the hands of the past American regime led by Biden then. But now they have come to this point, a very critical point, where this war, since Trump has come in, he has done two positive things. One, he has initiated discussions between the Ukrainians and the Russians. That is happening for the first time in 3 years. But it has come to the realization of everyone that the Ukrainians and the Russians are poles apart in their demands. For the Russians, they want Ukraine to be neutral. They have very stated it. They don't want them to join NATO. And they've annexed 4 oblasts in Russia, and they want to keep it for themselves. So they want the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the international community to recognize that fact. But for the Ukrainians, they feel that it's their sovereign right to join NATO, be part of a bloc that all the Eastern European countries joined when the old Soviet Union collapsed. Poland, Hungary, the Baltic states, almost all of them joined. But when it came to Ukraine's turn, Russia put a stop to it. When it came particularly to Ukraine and Georgia and Moldova seeking to join NATO, Russia stood their ground and said that wasn't going to happen because all the times they've been invaded as a country, most of the times the invaders passed through territory that is now in present-day Ukraine. So Trump is in a bad place. The neocons in America have an interest in seeing that this war continues. They never bought into the rhetoric of Trump, who said that he was going to end the war. They use their extensive access to the media. They use their extensive access to congressmen to congressmen and to think tanks and to lobby groups all across America and make sure that they press for continuation of support for Ukraine. And added to this, the Ukrainians have been defiant. If they didn't have the support of Trump anymore, as Trump has signaled that he would cut off the spigot of resources, American resources to them, they have the support of the Europeans. We should know one thing. The Europeans are a stock that have had a history with the Germans, with the Russians. Germany was responsible for the death of over 23 million Russians during World War II. And if it wasn't for the intervention of the Americans, the Germans, the Russians would have overrun Germany. In fact, they did overrun a large part of Germany, the eastern part of Germany, and they never left under the Soviet Union until the collapse of the Soviet Union. For the Germans, defeat by the Russians is something that remains unpalatable to them. The French also remember how 600,000 people followed Napoleon to Russia, and only 50,000 soldiers came back with Napoleon. In fact, that was what led to the removal of Napoleon, the fall of Napoleon. So this history between Russia and the Europeans is a long one. And we should also remember that there's a lot of Russophobia in America here, and that Russophobia has spawned the big hatred of a large group of the elite against Russia. You may remember that in the last Biden administration, they had quite a lot of Biden administrators. If you remember Anthony Blinken, and if you remember Victoria Nuland, and if you remember quite a lot of them, they did have history in Ukraine. Grandparents who were in Kiev, and they had people in Kiev, and they have history that make them feel that they owe it to the Ukrainians and to their grandparents to give one back to the Russians now that they were in positions of power. We know the role that Under Secretary of State Victoria Nuland played in the coup that overthrew the Russia-friendly regime in 2014 in Ukraine. Anyway, so now this is Trump. He wants peace. I should at this point state that Trump does not like Zelensky. There no amount of anything you say. Trump has said it that Zelensky is hard for him to deal with. But beyond that, Zelensky is the sole reason he was impeached in the first term as 45th president of America. He was impeached by the Democrats who alleged that he was trying to hold off aid and funds that was due to the Ukrainians. So he has a history with Zelensky. He doesn't like him. And even now, he has even said that while he's dealing with trying to find peace between the Russians and the Ukrainians, it's harder for him to deal with Zelensky. He has said it. And he sees that Zelensky, anytime he tries to snub Zelensky, we remember the big bust off when Zelensky came to visit him in the White House, and he accused Zelensky of trying to start World War III. So I know for a fact that Zelensky is not one of his favorite people. And he doesn't feel good wanting to give more resources to Zelensky and even the Ukrainian state. He doesn't forget the fact that it was a Ukrainian whistleblower who led to his impeachment. So I don't think that Trump is in favor as a person to trying to continue the war and giving American resources to Ukraine. But the institution standing behind the military industrial complex is huge. That institution is called, that institution is the institution of the neocons. And who are these neocons? Neocons are a set of American policymakers or influential people who tend to believe in America hegemony, America first, America should be the global hegemon, America should be the ones controlling the whole world. That is the position they hold. And for that reason, by every means that America undermines or asserts power over every other country, it's fair game to them. They use the CIA. We just found out that even the US aid, as benign as it's supposed to be, US Agency for International Development was a vehicle used by the neocons to undermine governments through media campaigns, through demonstrations, and through pro-democracy activities. And we see this group, they never have left. They are also being referred to as the deep state. And as members of the deep state, they really have a hold on how policy is shaped in America. So despite Donald Trump's agenda, despite the fact that he wants this war to end, he just seems not to be able to control it. He's cornered. He's in a bad place now. My thinking is that he is even losing the plot. He is trying to shift ownership of this war, move away from it, and say that this war is not mine. This is Biden's war. But every day, the pressure is falling on him. Now, with the recent attack by Ukraine on strategic bombers of Russia, we know that there will be a revenge. There will be revenge and retaliations against Ukraine. The scale and scope of that retaliation is what we are worried about. And that scale and scope of that retaliation will now mean, should America continue to support Ukraine, or should they find other means of harming Russia? Trump, as a person, has always felt that it is in America's interest to have good relationships with Russia. Trump has a bigger view of relationships, the globe, the world realities, geopolitical realities. He wants to own Greenland so that Greenland can be a bulk against the Russians and the Chinese. He wants to make peace with the Iranians, and he knows the influence of the Russians on the Iranians. And in fact, in his Truth Social posting today, he actually mentioned that he spoke with Putin, that Putin should weigh in on trying to convince the Iranians not to continue with their nuclear program. So Trump has always believed that America has a right to have a good relationship. It is in America's interest to have a good relationship with the Russians. This is by no means the first time a president who is saying this. This was the same thing that many scholars have always said, that in these days when the world is changing, you don't want Russia and China to be together. Anytime there's a cleavage between the two of them, you move in to become a friend of one of them. So that's the reason why Nixon became a friend of China at a time the Chinese and the Russians were and the Soviets then were having a problem. But now Trump wants a relationship with Russia. He has always said it. And even in the 2015 campaign, when he was campaigning to be president for the 45th president, he mentioned that he wanted better relationships with Putin. That was the reason why there was a whole scheme to try to undermine him, claiming that he was in bed with Putin, and the famous Russia Gate Some people don't want relationships between America and Putin. It is very entrenched in the American bureaucracy that Russia is supposed to be the enemy, not the friend of America. So this is just the way it is. Trump is cornered. He doesn't know what to do now. Should he continue with the war? Should he continue to support Ukraine? Should he move away from the war? What should he do? Trump is a man in a bad place. If he can't win, if he leaves Ukraine to the brutal punches of Russia, he will be accused of not supporting Ukraine and allowing Ukraine to be defeated by Russia. If he supports Russia, he will also be accused of being a close ally of Putin and a Russian asset, a lover of autocrats, and many other epithets that the Democrats and the Neocons and all the people who hate Russia, who hate Putin, and will throw at him. It is not a good time to be President Trump. This, among all his many challenges, tariffs, immigration battles, court battles, injunctions here and there. Trump is not in a good place. He's losing the plot as I see it. And that will even be the subject of another video, that I do sincerely believe that Trump is losing the plot. But in this regard, in regard to the Ukraine-Russia war, Trump would have to be decisive. He made a call today to Putin. He gets to understand the temperament and the mindset of the Russians. I don't know how much Putin gave away, but it's even before I started making this video, it came out that the American embassy in Kiev has started to tell Americans to be careful, to be very mindful of sirens. There shall be missiles raining down on Ukraine soon. We don't know whether they will be Oreshnik or whether there will be tactical nuclear missiles. I guess maybe Trump got the assurance that tactical nuclear weapons will not be used. And that's why he's telling Americans to stay safe. If possibly he got the inkling that tactical nuclear weapons will be used, I guess he will be telling Americans to get their ass out of Russia. So that's my thinking. Trump is in a catch-22 situation. Damned if he acts, damned if he doesn't act. And that's a Bimo Amungo's perspective for today. Thank you for being with me to this point in the video. If you have any your own opinions about what I've just said regarding this issue, please put in the comment section. Like, subscribe, support the growth of this channel, help the algorithm soak up our good deeds, tell the world by sharing and liking and subscribing. Thank you. Until I see you for the next video. Thank you.